Lord, Son. There be peace when you are done. Lay your weary head to rest.
Don't you cry no more.
What's up, everyone, and welcome back to Fiction Tea Review. So today we're going to talk about Supernatural, okay? Guys, if you have not seen this show, where have you been? Hiding under a rock? An American dark fantasy series about two brothers, Sam and Dean Winchester, as they track down their father, John Winchester, who is on the trail of the demon who killed their mother and Sam's girlfriend, Jessica. With the help of their father's journal as their guide, they carry on their family business of saving people and hunting supernatural creatures. It stars Jensen Ackles as Dean Winchester, Jared Padalecki as Sam Winchester, and Jeffrey Dean Morgan, also known as Negan, John Winchester. The writers are Eric Kripke and Robert Singer, and more. Each episode is about 45 minutes long, so you're literally watching a short story take place in visual form. So it's kind of like you're reading a short story. Each episode is a different story. Each episode it's a different monster. It's something horrifying that's going on. What I love about this show is its creativity when it comes down to the short stories. I mean, they talked about Wendigo. There was the 666 episode with this ghost truck that's kind of like the Flying Dutchman. Elements from folklore and elements from theology, elements from just fantasy, and warped it into this show. And it's just very, very creative. The episode tells a cryptic tale of a monster, a demon, or a telltale or folklore, and there's nothing more scarier than that. Something that's been talked about, something that may or may not be real, that actually is real, that becomes something. I mean, there was an episode where Sam and Dean talked about, you know, a lot of these things can be real things because people just imagine them. And that's what makes it so good. It's like a lot of these things have meanings behind them. They're not just these monsters out to kill people. It's like, yeah, these people, these townspeople are killing people. And so now there's this scarecrow that's out to get them, and they're supposed to put the scarecrow up to defend people, like scare people away, but they're sacrificing people. And it's like, these are things that can actually happen. And also, they're just spooky as hell because they're things that could actually happen. I watched an interview of Jensen Ackles, who plays Dean, and he talked about how Eric Kripke, the writer, actually did a lot of research and took a lot of elements from real stuff and real stories. And I just like, you can tell that he did like thorough research doing this, because a lot went into the episodes, because the episodes aren't just really rushed or really paced. It's like he actually took the time out to look up information and incorporate that information into something visually pleasing. I love that even though each episode was different in its own way, that it had a theme, that it always stuck to saving people, hunting things, the family business that Dean always says. And you could tell that they really truly cared about helping people and saving people, and they never put themselves before others. They were just, that's true humanity, when you're able to put yourself before other people and you care about their well-being. They're great. And they don't even get paid for this. Like, they do this for free. They mentioned Sam's name, Sam Winchester's name, as in relation to a rifle. The police officer, she was like Smith & Wesson, the rifle. And he's like, yeah, exactly. But also, Sam's name is taken out of the Bible in this sense, I feel, because the show has a lot of biblical references. One being that Sam his name means some sort of prophet. And if you've seen other seasons besides season 1, I'm not really going to spoil it, but you will see that, oh, maybe that correlates to him being a prophet because of what he can do. And his mother, her name being Mary, the dad's name being John, and the mother, how she died, and her dying in some sort of sacrificial way, and that yellow-eyed demon coming every 6 months that a child is born, and that whole thing can all be looked upon as a biblical reference to the Bible. I mention a lot that a lot of these TV shows and movies use biblical references. Like, if you look back at a lot of shows, that's out right now and that have been out. You have that reference to biblical text in some sort, but this, it took that and it put its own creative spin on it. Like, it's like, it just reminded me of when you're sitting down and listening to like a spooky story and you're like at a sleepover. I remember even being at a sleepover when one of my friends, family members, she would always tell us like spooky stories, and this just reminds me of that. It takes me back to that feeling. So let's get into the characters. Sam and Dean Winchester. I mean, who doesn't love the Winchesters? Like, come on. We love them. They give us life. They're so attractive, and we just love their brotherly bond. They have their moments where Dean is like, Sam, we're doing this. And Sam is like, I don't know, Dean. Like, sorry guys, I can really imitate their voice. It's kind of scary. Or in my mind, I'm imitating their voice really well because I watched it so many times, and I also kind of do commentary, like imitations for my cousins, and they tell me that I do a pretty good job of Dean. But anyway, and then there's vice versa where Dean is like, all you care about is yourself, Dan. I'm sorry. Rewind that. Where Dean is like, all you care about is yourself, Sam. And Sam is like, I said no to his dad, and he's like, you that desperate for his approval? Like, they're always having these moments where they're going catty against each other for different things. Dean is very much like that protector. Like, he's the older brother. He looks out for Sam. He looks out for damn near everybody. I mean, Dean could have been Sam's father at this point, because where was the dad? Honestly, half of the episodes, he was on his own mission. He would like give them missions to do, and like he would just be nowhere, and then he'd appear, and then he'd leave, and it was just like, John, where you going? I know you going back to The Walking Dead. You're not fooling nobody, Negan. No, he wasn't even like out at that time. Like, that show wasn't even out when like this came out around that time, I don't think. Dean has that very like aggressiveness. He's very protective of his brother, and you can tell that he really, really, truly cares about Sam. He cares about his dad and how his dad feels about him. You can tell that he really lives by his father's approval, as Sam said. You're that desperate for his approval. But also when John meets up with Dean, and the way John talks to Dean as opposed to how he talks to Sam, Sam is treated as a little tiptoe-ish. I mean, Sam and John do have their moments, but when it comes down to Dean, you can definitely tell that he's expected to do more because he's the older brother and he's supposed to look out for Sam. And Dean also has like this mom complex where like he always feels this need to protect women and children, and he's a protector, so it makes complete sense. He a real one. He is a real one, for real. Like, who wouldn't want somebody like that in their life? You can tell that he has some sort of mother complex where he always feels like he has to protect women and children. He always has to make sure that like he's always like, nobody's dying on my watch. Like, also because he always had to protect his brother, so he just innately has that in him. So I would want Dean on my team. That's all I'm saying. Like, when something goes down, I want Dean on my team. Yeah. And there's Sam, who plays a more like softer tone with people. He's able to talk to people more, kind of give them this puppy dog look. I mean, Dean mentions it a lot, how it's easier for Sam to talk to people, and Sam kind of has like this softer tone when he talks to people. He has like that innocence, childlike innocence, a bit like in his face and his features. He has a less threatening approach, I assume because he is the youngest brother and he's always been the one that was being protected as opposed to the one protecting, even though he does look out for his brother. But in comparison to Dean, it's completely different. Dean's older and he had different responsibilities than Sam, and Sam was able to go to school, and Dean had to be the one that like kept up the family thing and stand by his dad and everything. Their dynamic can sometimes be fussy because Dean is more like loose. He wants to get drunk. He's flirty with women. He's like, come on, man, let's have some fun. Whereas Sam is just like, no, like he wants to He's more of the like in the books, nerdy on the computer. They both do research, but you can tell that like Dean is definitely more loose, where Sam is like way more uptight about everything and just super serious all the time. But they always seem to come together and look out for one another, no matter what. Now, when it comes down to John Winchester, you can tell that he has a strained relationship with Sam. I mean, you can tell that Sam was the one that rebelled against him. The dad is kind of controlling. See that there is hurt there between Sam and John. How Sam feels like, you just let me leave. You didn't say anything. And John's like, well, you left. You decided to leave. And I just let you go. And there's kind of these hurt feelings between them of abandonment, but also you let me leave. Like, yeah, I feel abandoned, but also you did nothing about it. Whereas with Dean, it's like more firm, and it's like, I told you to do this. You're supposed to do X, Y, and Z. Even for like the most minuscule things, like John made a comment to Dean about the Chevy Impala, about the car, and was like, it's not clean or something like that. And it's like he's way more harsh. He's a lot more harsh on Dean as opposed to Sam. Also, I will say that I was proud of Dean for standing up to his father, and he's starting to gain confidence, I think, through Sam, because he was seeing Sam's rebelling against him, like, and also Sam's right. We're both right in these instances. Dad, you do leave. You do just disappear. We need to stick together. And you could see that Dean was starting to stand up to him, which I was like, go Dean, character development. Go, good for you. They are like the modern day Ghostbusters, which is funny because there's other episodes mentioning things like that in other seasons, but also that episode with the kids who were like thinking, I guess, that they were Ghostbusters. Yeah, but they're like modern day Ghostbusters, except they're better looking and they're a lot cooler. As far as the special effects go, I feel like they were pretty good for this being the first season, and most of it was believable. I didn't think it was bad. Also, this came out in the early 2000s, so it really wasn't bad for the special effects. I think for this times and the early 2000 times. I also love that everything was simplistic. Like, it wasn't overly done. You know how, like, a lot of shows, like, some shows are just, like, too flashy, and they gotta wear, like, they gotta be dressed a certain way. I mean, they do have their moments where they do that fake identity stuff and dress in suits and stuff, which is hilarious because they get to do all these things and, like, it's free. They don't get paid for it, but they always manage to have money. They're driving a Chevy Impala, which I vow to get one of those cars one day in my life. Like, I would love to have that on hand. But this is definitely one of my favorite shows of all time. Like, I've watched this show since it's been on CW and TNT, and I grew up watching this show. I put a lot of people onto this show, my family, other people, friends. Like, yeah, I used to have this on DVD. I think I actually still have seasons 2 on DVD, but I used to have 1 through 4 on DVD. That's how much I love this show. I love this show so much that when I used to watch it a lot back then, and I've watched the show over and over as far as the seasons, as far as like the first couple seasons. But I had the necklace, I had the calendar, me and my friend had the calendar, she bought the calendar. Like, this is like a fan cult classic fan fiction thing for me. Like, I really love this show, and I really need to finish the rest of the season. There's so many seasons that I just need to finish. I definitely would recommend this. You can watch it on Netflix. I would love to be down to review other seasons of this. If you guys are up for it, definitely comment below and let me know. I think that I believe this is a book. Like, this is a book series. I think the only place I saw this as far as book wise was in Barnes and Noble. I haven't seen it anywhere else. But yeah, I believe this is a book series. I would love to have the books. Yes, I need to do more digging about that. But on that note, this is why authors and writers are so important, because a lot of these shows that are like good shows or good movies stemmed from a book. And on that note, speaking of books, you should go get you a copy of my book, Rain. It is a psychological thriller about a group of young adults in a psych ward. They get this new counselor who's trying to help them, but he learns that these kids are actually being experimented on, and he's like, I'm gonna help them. But as he tries to help them, he kind of gets warped up into this mess where he's being experimented on, and it just tumbles down this tunnel. He learns that these kids actually have abilities. They're not all crazy. Yeah, it's on sale right now. You can go to kaleidoscopearts.net. And I will see you all next time. To send me an email at fictionT12reviews. You can become a self-published writer about more shows I've been watching. We can talk about shows. We can talk about all things sci-fi, fantasy, psychological thriller. And yeah, so see you next time.